Hi Luke, we're here today to talk about content moderation under the Digital Services Act or the DSA. We know that a lot of providers of digital services already carry out some form of content moderation, be that on their own initiative, responding to requests from users, or actioning orders from national authorities. What does this new law say about content moderation?
Hi Louise. The DSA's approach to regulating content moderation is to provide greater transparency and to empower users. It requires much greater transparency in relation to the kinds of content moderation practices that digital service providers will carry out, and it also empowers users to challenge both the kinds of content that they see online and also the decisions that service providers take in relation to that content. The most important first step is for service providers to ensure that their terms and conditions clearly set out the kinds of content moderation practices that they engage in. This should include both the kinds of content prohibited on their service, being illegal content, but also any content which is prohibited under their terms like nudity, and also set out the kinds of actions that they take in relation to content moderation.
You mentioned the empowerment of users to challenge the content and the decisions of those online platforms. I understand the notice and action mechanism is the basic vehicle for this. Could you please explain a bit more about that?
Absolutely. So the notice and action mechanism must be implemented by all hosting service providers, whether they privately or publicly host content. What it does is allow users to notify them of illegal content on their service and also provides those users with information about any action the service provider takes. In addition, online platforms, which are hosting services which host publicly accessible content, are required to submit these statements of reasons to a publicly accessible database provided by the European Commission, which will enable greater scrutiny of these decisions by both users and regulators.
So what I'm hearing is there's an increase in transparency rights for users through both the terms and conditions and the statement of reasons. On top of that, users are empowered to challenge the decisions of online platforms, and that's done through internal complaint mechanisms or via alternative dispute resolution methods. Is that correct?
That's right. So online platforms are required to implement the internal complaints mechanism, which allows users to challenge their content moderation decisions internally. In addition, out-of-court dispute settlement bodies will be established which will hear user complaints and resolve disputes in relation to content moderation. While the decisions of those bodies are non-binding, they are required to submit information to national regulators, which could mean that regulatory investigations are more likely to arise on foot of those disputes.
Really interesting, Luke. So my takeaways for service providers would be that they need to get their internal policies on content moderation in order and make sure that their terms and conditions set out any prohibited content and also spell out to users any restrictions that may occur on foot of a moderation decision. Doing so should allow the service provider to have their house in order should a user pursue one of the many opportunities they have to challenge a decision. They have their work cut out for them. Thanks very much, Luke.
Thanks, Louise.